That was my cat at the time, Gidget, and she's cute. Anyway, this was a house that I lived in for about 25 years in Fullerton, California. And that's me operating this Zenith video camera. It's not a camcorder. You didn't have a cassette and it couldn't record to itself. I had to use a cable attached to a VCR. So I'm kind of tethered to this VCR, and it happens to be in the garage where we're recording an album for the band Weed Puller. And this is the living room with a piano and some speaker cabinets. And this was my computer desk here on the floor. This is a computer, a mini tower. I was a bachelor, so didn't have a whole lot of furniture, but did have this house full of computers, and I'll show you. So that was, again, my desk. So this is a ViewSonic monitor, I think 17-inch. There's a Beanie Baby on top of there, so it kind of marks the time. And as it zooms in, you'll see as a screensaver, it's running Pointcast. And if you don't know what Pointcast is, you might want to look that up. That was popular for about 6 months in the 90s. And that's what's going on my screen there. But, most of the time I was sitting there, I don't know, programming or working on music stuff or whatever. But this is kind of where a lot of the Synchronet magic happened. At this time, it was, version 2.x, so for DOS and OS2 mostly. And sometimes I would run a node here on my system just for testing, but mainly that was the BBS in the kitchen. It's all dark right there, but you can kind of see the blinking lights. There's no kitchen table or really anywhere to eat or anything. There's a drawing table here full of paper, but this is where the BBS resided, and all the computers that needed to operate it and the modems. The reason why I was in the kitchen is because I had 8 phone lines coming in, and the house was only wired for 2 lines. And it was just much easier to expand by having all the computers right there in the kitchen, since the phone lines came in through that wall right there. The other side of that wall was where they come onto the property. And lights on. And for some reason I focused in on the printers here. So that's a Panasonic 1624, I think, dot matrix printer. To the left, that's a HP 4L laser. Let me back up a little bit. So the monitors there, since they're just running the BBS, are not too big, not too important, run nodes. That's a mini micro, like 12-inch monochrome monitor, like green screen, I think. And then that was a color, I think, like EGA, something similar, like a Packard Bell EGA monitor, I think. And a stack of modems, which hopefully I can get a good freeze frame on those. So let me see, we have a US Robotics here. That's like a Sportster. This is a Courier here, some kind of, probably, I'm sure it's a dual standard. I think it's a Microcom on top of that. I don't remember what these 2 modems are here. But I like to run a diversity of modems, mainly because I was always, developing initialization strings and stuff, and testing compatibility with different response codes and that kind of thing, making sure that software was compatible with as many modems as possible. So I always had a different stack of modems I was kind of going through, but I always tried to run the fastest ones. I think these were, I don't know, probably 19.2 or 28.8 at the time. And you can tell there's not a lot of blinking going on, so I don't think anybody's on the BBS at that moment. And these were the mini towers, the actual systems. I used to use Desk View to run 2 or 3 nodes per system. So 2 or 3 lines basically per system. And then this one here with the multiple floppies, that was my disk duplication system. I think it also ran like a FidoNet mailer or something. And then to the right, which I think I try to focus on here, was the server, which was a NetWare 386 full tower. You can just barely see it here. I'm kind of tethered, so I couldn't get a good angle on that. Yeah, that was a full tower. I think I had like 8 megabytes of RAM, which at the time was a lot. And then my library of technical manuals, so programming books and such. Now, when the BBS was active, you could usually see on these monitors what the remote user could see. And a lot of times that was fascinating to people that were walking by and watching people chat Maybe they were pretending to be someone they weren't. Cyber sex was kind of a new thing, and catfishing, although that term wasn't around yet, was definitely in play. So I'd have friends or family over, and they'd be standing there watching these monitors and go, "Rob, do you know what's going on here?" And I'd go over and look at it for a few seconds, but it gets boring pretty quick, but still casually fascinating. The reason why this is kind of significant this era, it was I shut down the dial-up lines on Vertrauen, the BBS, the very next month. So in the month of February 1997, I stopped running a dial-up BBS, and really did not run a BBS again until 1999.